Welcome to the latest away league match preview of the 25-26 season here on Stones TV and the Maidstone United podcast, where we look ahead to a midweek trip to the train station against Ebbsfleet. So before we look at the Fleet, a quick word on the Stones October Player of the Month. Anthony Papadopoulos won the vote after setting up 4 goals last month before getting his first Stones goal since he bagged here last December against Farnborough. Your thoughts on his award win, Nigel?
I think most fans would say, it's richly deserved, isn't it?
He did. He won the vote.
Yeah, exactly. But he, like we said in the Tunbridge review, he came in. He was a second half substitute, wasn't he, for that in the Maidenhead game, which was the last game we played at the end of September. Yeah, and he made an instant impact, didn't he? He got that own goal. Well, he didn't get an own goal, but he got an assist on the own goal. At Dagenham, and then it's been positive ever since then, isn't it? He's just all-round play. He just energises the whole team, and he just makes us a much better team with him in it, doesn't he? He gives us that X factor, and he gives us, something for the other opposition to worry about. Everything. It's not everything. It doesn't always go for him, because obviously, like we said in the Tunbridge preview, Jeffy's come on to form, and Gilbert's got the goals, but he just makes us a better team, and it's just no coincidence that from the time he left at the end of December, after that Farnborough game, he's literally just come back in and it's just made us a team again. It's just made us a club. It's just given everybody a lift, and not just the players that we've talked about, supporters as well. You actually go to games now looking forward to going to a game, don't you? Because we've got that star player, and he's the one. You look at Carlisle in the National League with Regan Linney in there, and all these good teams have a star player, and he's our star player. And
so to the departures from the Fleet, and Rakesh Bingham, Greg Cundall, Callum Harriott, Jim Kellerman, Nathan Odoconero, Luke O'Neill, Lewis Page, Dominic Polion, Jeff Tanga, recruited by the Stones, of course, Kwame Thomas, Kimani Thomas, all left. Jack Wakely retired. Wes Fonguk is on loan to Monterey Bay of the USA until the end of this month. So Nigel, an interesting and fairly inevitable clear out after last season's relegation, and the Stones, of course, amongst others, benefiting from their fall into South in the summer.
It was always going to be interesting to see what they was going to do, wasn't it? Because they've got Josh Wright there. They've retained him from last season, and although they didn't get as many points as we got when they were relegated, Wright did get some positive performances. They did. I think they beat Sutton at one point, and there's obviously they'd gone through 3 managers the previous season, so it was just about having a little bit of consistency, wasn't it? But again, it's sort of like he's a first-year manager, and we was going into it was his first full season, so it's interesting to see the squad that he has got in there and the players that he did let go, and I don't know what they've obviously got a different model to us, so they've got like their owner, and the recruitment is different to what we are. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily about contacting the players that because they've got a bigger budget to go and get the better players, haven't they? They can sort of say, right, we want that player, and go and get that player, because they've I don't think it's no secret, but they have got the financial clout to go and do that. Whereas when George came down, and we hadn't had that run, had we? We hadn't had a run in the FA Trophy, and he got a few victories in that, but he hadn't actually won a league game in the National League. And it was kind of like we kept a core of our squad that he wanted to keep, but we did sort of have to go and sort of look for players, and not look for bargain buckets, but he had to use his contacts, didn't he? So again, it's just a different model, and it's just been interesting to see how that's playing out, because we know the name, so we go through the names that they've got, and they have got some good players. But again, it's like we were talking about with the Tunbridge, they haven't got that consistency of, maybe because they're seen as a big fish, and people will sort of think, well, we've got to up our game against these, and haven't had that consistency that we've talked about.
But what's interesting about the transfer side of things, and we'll come on to who they've got in their squad at the moment, it's obviously recently emerged they've got a transfer embargo.
They have, yeah.
As well, so they may well have the financial clout, and they've certainly spent big and got some decent players in to start off the season, but it might be something, if the takeover doesn't get completed in the coming days and weeks, that embargo might be something that potentially trips them up further down the line this season.
Could be, yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be the first time that's happened to them, has it?
No.
As well as that has happened in the past. And when they had Michael Cheekin out there, they went on strike for a game against Wrexham, didn't they? But sometimes that can be a galvanising sort of thing for the players. If you know that it can work both ways, can't it? If you know that it doesn't matter if you're a player. Let's just take Charlie Seaman for example, because he's there and he's a player that we know. But he might have a bad game, but if he knows there's nobody potentially going to come in behind to sort of push him,
yes,
you could think, well, okay, I'm going to get my money, I'm going to get paid, and I haven't got to sort of push myself too much to sort of do it. But then also it could have the other effect where it's thinking like, well, everyone's against us, like I say, a galvanising effect, and a sort of do or die. We'll show them some kind of attitude and push them on that way. So again, it's going to be something to watch and see where it goes, isn't it? Because there is I say, coming down from the league above, they just literally had a Location Football just did a piece. I've not watched it yet, but I'm sure I'll catch up on it before the game on Tuesday evening. But again, there's a lot of eyes on them because they are this name. They have got sort of like a high profile, use that loosely, manager, haven't they? With the sort of Towie sort of his brother and being in the media and that side of it. So there's a lot of eyes on them, and sometimes it's how you deal with that pressure, with the expectation, because let's be honest with you, a lot of the pundits had them up in the top three at the beginning of the season, didn't they? Right. And all those teams that that were up there, the likes of Chelmsford and Dagenham and Redbridge, they're all sort of trading in Hornchurch's wake at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, 24 into 2 or 3 doesn't go, as we already know.
Exactly. Say you've got to earn that right to sort of be up there, haven't you? And at the moment it just hasn't clicked, and they haven't got that consistent performance there. But it's like all teams that are trying to be upwardly mobile. You're always trying to find that secret formula, aren't you?
Sure, there's a newspaper writer's wet dream coming up there, talking about earning the right. So you can have that one on us. So to the goalkeepers, and Gio Belligambi signed following a loan spell that he had at the end of 2020-21 season. He's been in goal during the last 3 league games, and Mark Cousins re-signed for the 25-26 season. The 38-year-old has 4 clean sheets in his 10 games so far at time of recording. So Nigel, huge experience in Cousins for their number one, then Belligambi showing some potential too.
And that's what we've said before, isn't it? You've got that experience there that, sort of like the Star Wars sort of analogy, the Master and the Padawan, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? There's probably no better ground to sort of learn your trait from, 38-year-old Cousins in goal. It's just that consistency that brings them that experience, isn't it? If you've got a young manager as well, like say he's not young in sort of age, but in years of experience of managing, in his first year, you've got somebody like that you can lean on as well as a manager, that's got that experience that can keep you in games and, maybe nick a few points here and there. It's worth its weight in gold, isn't it? So again, but as well, in training, because they are a full-time side, you're passing on that to the young apprentice, aren't you?
Indeed, Padawan. So in defence, and ex-Stone against the Stones, Charlie Seaman signed in the summer after departing the Gallagher. Former Gill skipper Max Amer signed for the 25-26 season. Tom Dallison and Josh Passley both re-signed for the season ahead. Central defenders Ronnie Nelson and Jamie Fielding signed from Tunbridge Angels. They probably knew that if you watched or listened to the last pod. Franklin Domi re-signed for 25-26, but is yet to feature this season at time of recording. Elijah Anthony re-signed for the season ahead as well, and Mustafa Olangunju re-signed for this coming season. So Nigel, there's a lot of Kentish defensive talent finding its way to the cufflink over the summer.
they've sort of gone out and because they can. They've just sort of like cherry picked the best sort of players from the local area, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, and we know that what Charlie Seaman can bring to your team. You just question whether sometimes they go and just cherry pick these players because they can, or you know they're actually going to pick players for a pattern of play to get a DNA.
I mean, we sort of said that last season with the FA Cup game, didn't we? Because when they come down in the FA Cup, everybody said, "Oh, it's a great team on paper," but as we've already said after Slough, it's not always played on paper, is it?
You're looking at, you know, talking about Jeffrey Tanger who's with us now. You know, that should have been an ideal signing for them in the National League. You know, they done the pre-season, you know, that do or die game with Brownwood, didn't they? And they stayed up on the last day of the season. So you're thinking with their budget behind them, that, you know, the kind of player like Jeffy was, and we knew what he'd done to the back end of that season when he was on loan from Leighton Orient with us. You know, to go out and sign a player like that, it's somebody that can really push you on and really, you know, you could get like a couple of years of talent out of it. But he was on the bench all the time.
I mean, and he played like left back for half that game as well in the FA Cup.
Exactly.
Square pegs, round holes.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I get it that it's difficult because you know that I think when Josh Wright wasn't even in charge when they had the FA Cup game, it was that other guy they had in, you know, the second manager of that they didn't start with, the middle one.
Yes.
But
clear as mud.
I can't think of his name. I'm trying to think of his name, but you know, but he didn't last very long after the FA Cup game. Yeah, but it is difficult, especially if you've got a manager that's not head of the recruitment policy. You know what I mean? The modern day way is that you get a recruitment committee and the manager's not part of that recruitment committee and he's just got to manage the players that he's been given. Yeah. So again, it's, you know, unless you've got a clear pathway, a clear pattern and a clear DNA in the way you're playing, it's always going to be difficult. You know, it's all right having a big budget so you can go and get these players, but you know if you're not coming in with a set formula of a way to play and what you want to bring, it's difficult, isn't it? Yeah. You know?
So to the midfield, and Ben Coker signed from Barnet in the summer. Gravesend-born Jake Hessenthaler signed after his Daggers departure. He's got 2 goals this season, most recently at time of recording the opener at home to Salisbury. Max Manctolo returned from his loan spell at Folkestone Invicta. He got his first of the season by scoring the second against Salisbury. George Moncur re-signed for 25-26. Gene Kennedy signed after departing Welling. I know he was one that was looked at by a number of clubs in South. Toby Edser also re-signed for 25-26. Ben Chapman, another one extending from last season. It's his 6th season with the Fleet. He last scored the equaliser at home to Dorking in the middle of last month. So Nigel, there's a lot of experience in this midfield and a lot of games in the legs already this season.
Yeah, and is that the telling thing? Is there a lot of games in the legs? That's the question, isn't it? I mean, you mentioned there about Gene Kennedy, and he was one of the standout players at Welling last year, and I know a lot of Kent clubs were after him, and probably it's probably a player that we've looked at in the past, but he's not getting no game time, and they're just playing the sort of like the same sort of players, you know, Moncur and, you know, and not getting the results that they want, you know, and that's what's the saying? It says, Steiner and Edith says he.
Oh yeah, Einstein,
playing,
exactly,
you know, and expecting a different result every time.
Yeah, the same thing, yeah.
I say they have kept a lot of them players well with them last year in the National League. Yeah. You know, these experienced players, and it's all right thinking that they're going to come good, but you know, when do you make that change? When do you think, you know, they're probably going to be on big long-term contracts? You know, and people have said about it with Maidstone. You know, we've got a lot of players on short-term contracts, but the benefit of that is if it's not working out and it's not clicking, you can move them on that little bit more easily, can't you? Again, and then you mentioned that transfer embargo. So, you know, a lot of these players will be on big wages, but they're sort of coming to the end of their career. So you're much more likely to pick up injuries, like little knocks. And, you know, we know that it's a medical fact, isn't it? You know, the longer you are in your career, you take longer to sort of come over these injuries.
Yes,
so,
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you wonder where it's going to go if they do pick up an injury. Where are they going to? Because you can't buy that experience. You might have a young player that's chomping at the bit, like we say with Kennedy.
Not with Banktelow as well.
And Banktelow, they've recalled him from Folkestone. But again, if they're just picking up splinters in their bum sitting on the bench, it's going to take them time to get back up. And we're now getting sort of we're a quarter of the way through the season now, and so that unless you're on that coattails of them playoff places, you're always going to be playing catch up, and you're going to literally come Christmas time, you're going to have to be in championship form, and it's and as I said, there's a lot of expectation on them to sort of be up there, not just from the fan base, but from outside. Obviously, if you're putting money into the club, you're going to be expecting to be at the top end of that table, aren't you? Yeah. So it's there's going to be a lot of noise and a lot of eyes on the club, and it's going to be interesting because you sort of look at it coming to Ebbsfleet, coming to us. Do they look at that game as like a marker game? Do you know what I mean? Because again, we said about it. We talked about it in conversation, haven't we? That the year that we won the National League South in 2022, it was literally we played them at exactly the same time. Yeah. We had that game against Chippenham at the end of October. We hadn't been in very good form. We'd had a good start that year, so we was sort of like just in and out around the playoff places. But we had a dodgy penalty. I recall, I think Jerome Williams got pulled down. It was outside the box, but the referee deemed to be inside the box. Luke put the penalty away. We got a dodgy 1-0 game, and we went to Ebbsfleet on the Tuesday night, and I think it was 3-1 from memory,
3-1 or
3-2, something like that. But and that was the start of it. That we then went on that run, and we just propelled us all the way up to the top of the table. So these, and like we've always said, and we said it with the Slough game, but even more so of Ebbsfleet. Yeah. They are sliding doors moments. Literally, the games that we have against Ebbsfleet are, going all the way back to the playoff final.
A decade ago now, isn't it?
The £1 million save that Morgan did. And legends are made from those games, and that's like, that was the start of the when we're talking about that 2022 game. Sam Corn, he sort of come on into his own. He was a, and then Luke, he scored that goal, one of the goals that game, and I think Sam Corn got a brace that game, and he obviously, Sam Corn does like playing against Ebbsfleet as well, so hopefully that can be a little bit of a resurgent for his goal.
He's due a goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put that one out there.
So it's, all these little things, and we know that players are superstitious. They've always got their superstition. So maybe that's just a little sort of G up that we need going into this game.
See if the writing's on the wall, as Stevie once said. So up front, and Aaron Cosgrave signed on for 25-26 after departing Halifax during last season. He scored the winner against Chippenham back in August. Winger Lennon Peake joins from Enfield Town. Forward Kwesi Appiah signed from Boreham Wood. He was prolific last season to help fire the Wood to promotion. He has 2 goals this season, most recently cancelling out Grout's opener against Eastbourne. Attacking wide player Finlay Barnes signed from Kings Lynn Town. His last goal was the second against Eastbourne last month. Forward Josh Coley signed after 2 seasons with Sutton United. His most recent strike was in the home draw with Hornchurch. Dominic Samuel extended for 25-26. He has 3 so far this season. His most recent was a consolation at Enfield Town. So Nigel, plenty of goals at this level in recent years from a forward line that's got real potential again this season.
Yeah, exactly. They've got the potential and they've got that experience, but again, it's a lot of those players are not having a run in the side as well. Picking up little niggles here and there and just not firing them. It's again they got a win against Dorking. We'll come on to their results, but they had a win against Dorking a few weeks ago, and then they go to Enfield on a Tuesday night and lost 4-1, was it, I think, in the end?
Yeah, it's quite
so again, it's just that consistency, isn't it? It's we know that, strikers live on confidence, don't they? You know, getting that run of games behind them, getting their minutes in their legs, and you know, really performing. But if you're picking up little niggles, I mean, Dominic Samuel, I think when he was at Blackburn, he was £1 million player, wasn't he? But yeah, he's never had that run in the Ebbsfleet side. Even last year when he was in and out, and he'd come back in, and you think he gets a goal, and you think, oh, here we go, he's going to go on a run now. And then he picks up another little niggle, and he's out the side again, and then he's got to build it back up again. It's like, yeah, I say they've got the talent there. Like players like Josh Coley and Finley Barnes, you know, they all came in with, you know, big reputations. But again, is it just the reputation precedes them, and it's trying to find that formula to get them performing at the top end of their game, and that's something that Josh Wright and his management team haven't really been able to do yet. They haven't been able to get that sort of winning formula for that consistency.
Yeah. So to the form of our hosts in midweek, and they played Grimsby Town away on Saturday before we recorded this particular edition. They got there after beating Ashford Town, Middlesex, Faversham Town and Stones Conquerors from 12 months prior, Solihull Moors, all at home. To the league, in their away form, only one win on the road on opening day at Dagenham, a goalless draw at Hemel, and defeats at Slough, Hampton and Richmond, Torquay and Enfield Town to their home league games. And they're unbeaten across their first 7 games, draws with Bath, Hornchurch and Eastbourne Borough, with wins against either side of those draws against Chelmsford and Chippenham, both 1-0, and then Dorking and Salisbury more recently. So Nigel, Stones have only lost 1 away game so far in the league. It's the best away side in the division, hosted by the 6th best home side at time of recording. Your thoughts on where the advantages lay, frankly, if anywhere?
I don't know if it's anywhere really. I mean, it's like they say, it's a derby game, isn't it? You know, and there's a rivalry there. There's a derby game. You know, from a Maidstone point of view, that this is our game that we sort of gauge ourselves on. This is our barometer, sort of, to where we're at. It's a derby for the ages, isn't it? Like I said there earlier, it's, you know, they've always been pivotal games. They've always been, you know, season defining. Even you know, when they had the better of us in the National League, it was the game that, you know, I remember they beat us late in the season when they had Michael Cheek and that, and he scored down in front of the Genko there, and you know, that they went on a run after that, and that got them into the playoffs that season. So, you know, from both sides, you know, I say form goes out the window in games like this, doesn't it? And it's one of those games that fans and probably directors and players look forward to alike, don't they? You know, and you know, obviously with the change of like Jeffy coming this way and Charlie going the other way, you know, there's a lot of familiarity there. You know, we know a lot of their players, and yeah, I think it's just going to be a proper Tuesday night game under the lights, and you know, bring it on.
Oh, indeed. So to the head-to-head between the two sides, 11 matches in the last decade, 4 wins apiece, 3 of those for the home side, 2 Stones away wins in 2015 and 2021, and only 1 Ebbsfleet home win back in 2017, leaving 3 draws. One of those was that playoff final penalty shootout 9 years ago, of course. So Nigel, fixtures we've already said quite often today, recent rich history that favours the away side according to the results. Your thoughts on how that affects Tuesday?
We've had the better of those recent games, haven't we? You know, even the just thinking back when we won the Kent Cup a few years ago, you know, they were in higher division at Bromley's game, wasn't it? And we beat them in that. And you know, as you mentioned last season, the FA Cup, the 4th qualifying round, we beat them in that. That was a home game actually. And you know, you wouldn't have said in that game that we was like leagues apart, was we? You know, we was on a good run, and you know, and that's the way I look at it. You know, for all the money that Ebbsfleet have perceivably got. When was it we first played in 2015 season, wasn't it? 2015, 2016 season. You know, all these years later, here we are, still in the same league, you know. And we've both had, they've won National League South, we've and gone up through the playoffs. We've done the same. You know, we've had that FA Cup run. You know, and it's throughout football. You know, all these local teams. You know, the fan bases that have got this sort of like rivalry to it. You look at little different things, don't you? Little patterns that you can sort of think, right, we've got something on that. We've got something. You know, it might be totally irrelevant, but you know, fans love it. You know, it's all the ingredients that make up these games, isn't it? All the little spice, and you know, you often go on the other team's forum, and there's a whole thread on Maidstone United, and there's a whole thread on the Maidstone forum on Ebbsfleet United and their finances, and you know, people are sort of have got their own opinions on it, and you know, you're embedded it because they're so close to us, and you know, the connections are so close, you know, and it's a different model to what we're used to.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like you're just looking to get one up on them all the time, haven't you? In whichever way you can. So
it's an all-ticket match at the Cufflinks. So Stones fans, please purchase your tickets via Fanbase. This must be done before midnight on Monday, the 3rd of November. So before the Tuesday morning ticks over. If you can't make it to the game, be sure to have your Twitter notifications on from the club account. Alternatively, BBC Radio Kent will provide you with live commentary. We will bring you A Stones live commentary after the game. That will mean our usual hot take and then the highlights once those go online. So it's always a big occasion when these two sides meet, especially under the lights. Both sides in decent form in recent weeks. Could be a tight game. Really looking forward to this crucial game at this stage of the season. Our thanks to you out there as always for watching or listening to the latest preview. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, just search for the Maidstone United podcast to see or hear you for our next preview ahead of the latest home league game with a visit of Chippenham Town. And as always,
come on, you Stones!